clerk call the roll?
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Rue?
City Manager Brian?
Yes, Commission, thank you. Tonight we have two work session topics. I'll start with the first one, and that is a zoning code update. So if you were at the last meeting, we had one as well with our consultants. And with us tonight is Nate Weingeis with Urban Fast Forward, and Wadehi Agwan, who is our planning and zoning administrator with the city.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me again. I'm here to update you. Last time we talked about a survey that was going out to follow up with a lot of the community engagement we have done. So just a refresher, we performed 2 stakeholder engagements with the listed organizations on the right of that slide. And we received a lot of feedback, which we wanted to test on a larger group of people. We wanted to keep just kind of seeing if stakeholders are sharing the same beliefs with just regular people who live in the city. You didn't have to be a special person part of this organization. So we did that on May 1st and May 2nd. We got all of these comments. That image shows comments specific to places and concerns of the stakeholders that we engaged. So from there, we had in-person public engagements from June 29th to July 14th on each of those days. We had a series of maps that showed, we went by quadrant in the city. We split the city up into 4 parts, and we allowed people to come and say, well, these are areas that I'd like to see transform, stay the same, or evolve. And we showed a lot of housing types and character type images that would allow people to dream what would the future of Springfield look like in these given areas, as well as the city at whole and downtown. Those were the places that we engaged people, each of those sessions. So just to summarize, we had 4 engagements at these 4 locations. The outreach methods were flyers, social media posts, and we also posted on the city's website. We didn't get the number of people that we were hoping, but we did get really interesting and helpful comments, which we then turned into a survey. The takeaways that we have are here. We went over them last time within residential. The biggest takeaway we can say here is there's a deep need and desire for more housing types that fit a wider range of income levels, from low, moderate, high, workforce, just generally more housing. There's a desire also to bring back the mixed-use developments. In particular, we had a lot of desire in the southwest engagement, where we had attendees recall the time when smaller businesses used to be part of the neighborhood and have since left as zoning has changed and made smaller businesses obsolete or illegal in some cases. So how do we bring back that zoning that allows those things? Miscellaneous comments like community gardens, in residential zones, terminology. How do we take this kind of jargon, I will say, that you sometimes read in a lot of city zoning and think, all right, how do we turn this into regular, plain spoken English that people can understand? And we have some comments in here that we'll go over that help explain that a little bit more. Downtown, we focused again on downtown. It's everybody's downtown. How does zoning encourage development down here? How do we reuse these historic buildings that are all around downtown? And how do we build on the momentum of things that people have shown that they want? And so that was a big discussion of how do we engage that further. We posted an online survey at the meeting. That was the first day, the last meeting that we talked, the last work session. And we have since gotten over 200 responses. The way I think we're driving responses, I go on to explain that here. We're including the link on city water bills. Planning staff are personally going to events and handing out these postcards, if you'd like these postcards. The postcards are on each of the podiums. If you haven't taken the survey, there's a link that you can scan that will take you to the survey. And we're collecting feedback, which I'm here to share with you some of the early results that we're getting. Additionally, we got a big bump from the Springfield News Sun posting an article, I think this past weekend. We saw over the weekend over 120 responses come in from that. So we're hoping to carry that momentum. I showed this to demonstrate also how word of mouth spreads this. How do we keep the momentum up? How do we get more people to just interact with these ideas? So the first of the ideas that we're asking people on are, again, there was a desire in all of the engagements that we had in person, as well as the stakeholder engagements, that smaller housing types are desired. We heard from a lot of people that was something that they would like to see built to accommodate vacant parcels that are throughout the area, specifically in the Southwest and Southeast, as well as newer developments. How do we promote more manageable style housing that allow people to age in place and also more affordably take care of their property? So 45% of people are in strong approval or approve the idea of smaller housing types. Disapproval, 40% of people are either disapprove or strongly disapprove. And there's nearly 15% of people don't have really an opinion on it. I think they just want to see more housing. As a lot of those comments that are coming through are just people who want to see more housing. So whatever it takes. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Building on this initial response that we received, we are trying to perform a GIS analysis and identify areas or parcels within the city that are vacant and zoned residential, and the way they are zoned and the way our code is right now, if a house can be built on it or not. And depending on that, we'll adjust the dimensional requirements so that a house can be, or those lots can be buildable. So based on all of the preliminary surveys, we are also doing our background research and analysis of the code. We'll see what the results.
Duplexes, we talk about, okay, so if housing is a need here, how do we promote more housing? And so one of the comments that came up in the engagements was, what if you allowed more than one unit on single family zoning, currently single family zoning, which excludes like duplexes or triplexes or quadplexes. And in this case, we have a support for duplexes. It's an acceptable housing type. A lot of people are in favor or believe that it's okay. 61%, I believe if you combine those two, the 24 and 37, believe that it would be okay or highly they're excited about that idea, I think is the best way those comments can be summarized. Again, we wanted to push that idea. Would duplexes be preferable? This was a rank choice, so you could put multiple choices. Just one unit came out top, but right there, the second most desirable housing type is duplex. So how do we encourage and allow for more units on currently single family zoned areas and in future developments? Strong desire for smaller businesses and green spaces. Those are the type of uses that people want to see their zoning code allow in the future. In a future rewrite, a strong preference for small bakeries, grocery stores. They want places where community events, spaces, halls can happen. Pocket parks are obviously a big desire and a larger desire than, say, auto-centric uses. As you can see that we have those are the last ranked lowest behind Airbnbs. Again, bringing you back to understandable language. I have a quote here. It was one of my favorite from this section. It says, let's be honest, not everyone understands what the policies say. Be transparent and to the point. Make it make sense for readers and not just I would put in not just the officials. It's a survey response that I think summarizes what we're trying to do here. Is when people refer to the code, make sure that they understand what the limits of what the code is allowing them to do. And also, not just the limits, but what is it allowing you to do? Cutting through the red tape, how do we allow people, this was a question geared towards what topics can be an administrative role, what things can people just move ahead with in regards to, a setback, additions, inspections, decks, all those things. Do they have to come to a commission meeting? Do they have to get, these kind of like lengthy processes just to do these small things to their homes? What are those small things to the homes? That's what we need to further clarify. But this is a word cloud of a lot of, generally people would like to see that happen. More things just easily moved through a zoning approval rather than a lengthy process to getting, say, what is it? We had the example of a corner lot.
Appeals?
Yeah, board executive, but like someone who wanted like a fence on a corner lot. You don't have
Administrative.
an administrative process, but like you don't have to go through a big rigmarole to do that.
One of the things that came up with this survey is pocket park use. That is not defined in the zoning code, but we are seeing a lot of responses that are leaning towards having more of them. So we just want to take a look at what the developmental standards for those would look like. If it's okay to be fencing off a pocket park, or what kind of landscaping would be required, what constitutes a pocket park, and other details.
That brings us to next steps. The public comments that we're receiving are going to be used to guide the new code as it is written. So ZoneCo is working closely with the city to make sure that this new zoning code is developed. Public comments are informing it. We're meeting with city departments like fire and police to make sure that the new zoning code will be acceptable. I remember just after last meeting, we had the chief come up to us and ask, what's this going to look like? We want to make sure that we can work with this document. And then we're going to present it to the public for review, and then the city commission will review it, and then it moved towards adoption as a final code. So that's where we're at. We're wrapping up public comment.
It's an excellent collection of data. Appreciate all you're doing, Brian. David?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. As we think about mixed use, and I think that makes a good deal of sense. My question is, are you thinking about mixed use for the buildings downtown? Because it seems to me it would make some sense to offer developers or future developers the opportunity to not only have business suites, but also residential, retail, as well as businesses. Is that part of your thinking?
Yes, so we are taking a look at the downtown. Currently, it's fragmented into different zoning districts throughout the downtown area, but there is an overlay that defines the downtown, and so we are taking a closer look as to merge all the districts together and see if that can be a downtown district rather than separate like residential, commercial district.
Welcome.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Commissioners, before I bring up our next work session, while they're pulling up the PowerPoint and so forth, I wanted to just let the audience know, so we are at capacity in terms of our fire code. I have a fire chief that tries to pay attention to those things for the room. So we are at capacity. So there are individuals that are outside right now waiting that want to come in. So what I do have is I've directed staff right now. They're outside with them, taking down contact information and stuff with their comments and concerns, and we will follow up with each and every one of them. Because again, my fire chief, we have a fire code we have to follow. There is a maximum occupancy for the room. And so I just want to let you know we are following up with every individual that's out there.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Ma'am?
YouTube Live
Yep.
and Channel 5, yes.
Yes.
So our next presentation, Commission, is a great project and program that's formed from a collaborative effort of various partners throughout the community. And with us tonight to share about that is our Gun Violence Prevention Coordinator, Caleb Perkins, who is employed by OIC of Clark County, but again is working on this collaborative effort with many different stakeholders in our community. So with that, Caleb.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Commission. As Mr. Bryan said, my name's Caleb Perkins. I'm a licensed social worker with 7 years of experience working with children and families in various roles, and I am your gun violence prevention coordinator. Why am I here? So, sorry, sir.
And just go ahead and address the commission.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'm here as part of a $1.6 million grant that was awarded to the OIC of Clark County from the Department of Justice. It's part of the federal government's community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative to help address violence within the community. As Mr. Heck stated, that is part of a collaborative network between the City of Springfield, the Springfield Foundation, the Clark County Juvenile Court, the Health Department, Springfield Police, the OIC of Clark County, Springfield City Schools, the Mental Health Recovery Board, and the NAACP of Springfield. So part of the reason that this came about, or at least is a national concern, is that the U.S. Surgeon General recently announced gun violence as a public health crisis back on June 25th of this year. It is found to be the leading cause of death among children and teens between the ages of 1 to 19 years of age. As of the making of this slideshow, we have had 300 mass shootings in 2024 up until June 26th of this year. Black Americans have been found to be 11 and a half times more likely to be victims of homicide comparatively to their white counterparts, with Black men accompanying or being the highest victimized group, being 23 times more likely to be victims. Some quick facts from the CDC. 48,000 people died in 2022 as a result of firearms violence, with nearly 27,000 of those being through suicide. Over the past 10 years, we've seen an 87% increase in teens and children being affected by gun violence, and becoming the number one cause of death for them, beating out motor vehicle accidents. 20 times, Black children and teens are 20 times more likely to die by firearm violence comparatively to their white counterparts. And just recently, gun suicide actually was surpassed in the white community by their Black counterparts. And you see the number 5 on the end there in a red section highlighted. The CDC made some recommendations as to why or what should be done to help address this concern. Our program is part of that very last section, community violence intervention. And as you can see from this chart, in 2020, firearm violence surpassed motor vehicle accidents as the leading cause of death among children between the ages of 1 to 19. Now for Springfield, because I know the national numbers are telling, but we're in Springfield, so. Clark County Dispatch received 1,170 shots fired calls between March 1st of 2023 and June 30th of 2024. 880 of these were in Springfield alone. That accounted for 75.21% of the county's total. 518 firearm incidences occurred in Springfield that had resulted in arrests and charges between January 1st of 21 and 2023. I've broken down those numbers by year. 76 shootings had occurred that resulted in death or injury between March 1st of 23 and June 30th of 24. 65 of those were in Springfield. They accounted for 85.52% of the county total. In Springfield alone, there were 82 firearm thefts between January 1st of 23 and June 11th of 2024. 56 of those had occurred in 2023 alone. And I've broken down, because people ask me, what's the month-to-month basis? I had broken it down month-to-month, and as you can see, the summer months do trend higher than the rest of the year, this being the shots fired calls. There was no less than 45 calls per month, with April and January eyeing. Shootings by month. Again, the summertime trends higher. As you can see, in July of 2023, we had 12 shootings, with the minimum being 1 in September and October. Total number of offenders by age. There were 601 total offenders accounted for in the 2021 to 2023 time period. The highest of those offenders fall under the 18 to 24 age range, with a considerable number also falling into the 14 to 17 age range. We also examined firearms stolen per month. There does not seem to be too much of a generalizable trend in this statistic. It does seem to be pretty variable. So can't make any conclusions based off what we're able to see. And now the map. So the data I had just presented to you we ended up mapping it out to find out where is this occurring within the city. And as you can see, Census Tract 3 is the hotspot for shots fired calls. And it bleeds into Census Tracts 12 and 13. However, the city is experiencing a wide range of shots fired calls. As far as firearm-related arrests go, they do seem to follow the same trend and pattern. Census Tracts 3, 12, and 13 experiencing the highest levels of arrests relating to firearms, with a very small area up north being the intersection of McCreet and Limestone Street. Questions?
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Where do we go from here?
Well, that's
It's a pretty bleak picture.
That's a great question, sir. So based off the assessment that we've done up to this point, other programs throughout the nation have implemented violence interrupter programs, mentorship programs, deterred group deterrence interventions. As part of our assessment process and the initiative, we are entering our strategic planning to actually guide us in finalizing that programming.
I could, a follow-up question.
Sure.
When do you expect those to sort of hit the street?
We should be wrapping up strategic planning by the end of the year with implementation occurring in January.
Of 2025?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Thank
this
you.
would be another opportunity that you would come back and explain next steps and what's going on at that point, maybe in the first quarter.
Absolutely.
So this is a sad and excellent data presentation, and then we'll look and see an action step in the first quarter. That sound all right?
That sounds good.
Can you give
Tracy?
a better description on the top 3 hotspot locations within the city?
Sure. So Census Tract 3 is actually where the John Legend Theater or the Dome is located. It is actually, if you can look right there to the left of that hotspot within Census Tract 3, that is the campus of the Dome. So the neighborhood just off eastward of the Dome is there. The border line that goes in between Census Tracts 12 and 13 is actually Selma Road, leading off of that area.
Have we looked into how poverty is impacting these pieces, how racism is impacting those pieces? Have we looked at those pieces yet?
So the literature does indicate there is correlations between poverty, systemic racism, and some gender correlation.
Sure.
As far as our own assessment, that is not something we wanted to focus on
Okay.
at this moment. However, we have been performing, as part of the assessment, we have distributed surveys throughout the community to try and collect trauma-informed data that could help indicate usage and intended usage statistics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. I just want to say thank you to the partners. This would not be possible without the collaborative nature that this has taken on. This is not going to be solved in a vacuum. It's going to take all of us as a community and community organizations working together to address the problem that Caleb just laid out. And I appreciate Caleb for all of that information that he has collected and done the due diligence on. I would be remiss too. I think I saw Dion Green up there from the Fudge Foundation. I know Dion's also actively involved and continues to work in raising awareness as part of this project and just in general about gun violence and the impact that it has. So I wanted to comment to that too. But thank you, Caleb. And with your permission, we'll also put these slides up on our website so they're available for people to be able to review the stats.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston? Yes. Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Before we begin our meeting, we have a proclamation that we get to do right now. So we will begin with proclamation. This is, I'll just go ahead and read it. Whereas National Black Business Month was founded in 2004 by Frederick E. Jordan Sr. and John William Templeton to recognize the vital contributions of Black-owned businesses throughout our country and to encourage their continued development and success. And whereas the United States Small Business Administration Office of Advocacy estimates that there are 3.5 million Black-owned businesses employing more than 1.2 million people in the United States and generating over $250 billion each year. Whereas the city of Springfield is home of a variety of Black-owned businesses that provide family-supported jobs and careers to workers in our community and are an essential part of the economic quality of life in our community. Whereas promoting and supporting Black-owned businesses is a critical step in addressing the racial wealth gap that persists in our country, and supporting Black-owned businesses and small businesses in particular has never been more important. Therefore, I, Rob Rue, the Mayor of City of Springfield and the President of our Commission, do hereby proclaim August 2024 as Black Business Month, and we urge our citizens to look at this month and frequent Black-owned businesses and continue to work towards inclusion, empowerment, and Black-owned enterprises. And to speak to this is Reggie Troutman, our minority business consultant, and some other speakers would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rue, commissioners. Again, I'm Reggie Troutman and I'm the Minority Business Coordinator with the City of Springfield. And this is a momentous occasion because of the proclamation. Thank you also, City Manager Brian Heck, for coming together and making this possible. But it's not about me. It's about the Black business owners that I assist and help and admire every single day. And there are quite a few in the room. So if you are a minority business owner, Black business owner, or Black Business Month, can you please stand and raise your hand? And if possible, I also would like Levi, who was our first spotlight actually, with the City of Springfield. He had a couple of words, if it's okay, to speak.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So because of the divisive times we're in as a city, I wanted to make sure I make a statement about why I saw value in accepting this recognition and my thoughts about its meaning. I want to start by thanking the City of Springfield for recognizing my business during Black Business Month. I had mixed feelings about the utility of recognizing a specific group of people without someone explaining the context by which that recognition has value for the community. Without proper context, it has extreme potential to cause division where there should be unity. So first, if you are growing up in a minority community and you see no example of people that look like you in the positions that you aspire to get to, it becomes increasingly difficult to convince yourself that it is possible. Many can and have broken through that mental and unfortunately sometimes physical barrier, but many cannot. That is the value I see in Black Business Month. It gives the young Black child an example they can use to break down these barriers and the will to aspire to chase their dreams. This holds for any minority group. With that said, I also want to make sure that my young minority entrepreneurs understand that business is not hard because I am Black. It is inherently challenging regardless of your color. It doesn't matter how hard you work, if you don't learn that success is a house built on the foundation of a supportive team and a community, you will fail and you will not survive. I chose Springfield to retire because I have received tremendous support. Not because I'm Black, but because I see and want to bring value to this community. My success is attributed to God and a team of professionals from all backgrounds that all want to provide the best service we can and breathe new life into this community. Today, I am recognized as a Black-owned business. If this is something you aspire to do, today you see many examples that it is possible. to fellow business owners and leaders, regardless of race, continues to set an example for the generations behind us by showing the value of collaboration, a tenacious attitude towards challenges, and most importantly, a heart for your community. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'd like to invite any of the Black-owned business owners down to the area. We're going to go ahead and take a photo with the proclamation with you, please. Brian. Paul, to get it on the record. Okay. Yep, okay. So the formal meeting of the City Commission will call to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston? Here. Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Tonight's invocation, is Aaron Roy here? Aaron Roy. Okay. We'll go ahead and begin. We're just going to have a moment of silence and then we'll continue on. Pledge allegiance.
Republic, one nation, God.
Is there a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston? Yes. Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Okay, folks, I have a statement to read from the commission. The city commission acknowledges the concerns and issues raised in our meetings regarding growing immigration population in our community. To foster more constructive dialogue and a dedicated forum on immigration matters has been established and led by Denise Williams, President of the NAACP. This forum provides the opportunity for commissioners to actively listen and engage with the community's concerns, allowing us to collaboratively seek solutions. The first forum, held last Thursday, was well attended, and the next forum will take place on August 29th at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. here in the City Hall Forum. If you plan to address the commission tonight during public comment period on immigration issues, we encourage you also to participate on the August 29th event for future discussions. Tonight, during comments, I have cards that we will go ahead and have people come up and speak for 3 minutes. You will not receive any answers from commissioners. We will address some of your answers during times of commissioner comments at the end of our business meeting. There will also be no bantering or dialogue between commissioners and the audience, or the audience and the audience. If you disrupt the meeting, no matter who you are in this room, you'll be politely asked and respectfully to leave the meeting. We want to keep this to a business forum. We want to have a constructive dialogue with you. We care about your comments. We want to hear your comments. And we know that there is a lot of emotion in this entire long season of life that we are all in, this political climate. So we want to acknowledge that. So I'm just going to ask that we have also put forum rules as far as how the meetings have been run for a while. All your comments will be directed towards me during the 3 minutes. And then if there's anything that I need to correct at one point, we will, but you will not receive answers. We will direct you to the appropriate staff member, and they will follow up with you after the meeting. We want this to be as constructive as entirely possible. And we do thank you for coming. Our first comment tonight is from Cindy Phillips. If you would go to a podium, and you have 3 minutes.
I just had a couple questions. I just wanted to ask about the village you're in when that caught on fire and all of that. What was the amount of the insurance check, and are those funds, have they been spent, or where are they at this point?
We'll have City follow up with you after this meeting. We do have your information.
Okay. The other questions that I had was why Homeful didn't come to the meeting to try and answer any questions or anything like that for the last meeting before the vote was taken on how to allot those funds.
Okay. Again, staff will follow up with you.
Okay.
I don't mean this in light, but as commissioners, we have staff that are able to answer these questions in great detail and want to provide you all the best information we have. And this is how we will do it. Go ahead and please ask your questions.
I was also wondering who negotiated the purchases of the executive inn and the village you're in.
Okay.
And I wanted to also know, was there ever a plan discussed prior to last week's meeting that if the vote was turned down, what the plan would be to help those people without disrupting their lives?
Thank you. Thank you for your comments and your questions. We have Roger Meddock. Thank you, sir.
In front of Brian Heck, there's 3 photos.
Sir, would you please direct your comments directly to me, not to our staff members? Directly to me. Thank you so
They
much.
are directed to you. I'm
Just
just
right to
saying
me.
he has 3 photos that were passed out to him at the beginning.
Okay.
It's directed to you.
Thank you, sir. Go right ahead.
I'd like for everybody on the commission to look at the photos. Those are the drug addicts living in Lincoln School that I've been complaining about for months. These are the actual photos. You know who chases those drug addicts out of there? My canine every morning. because I can't get any help. I've sent photos to everybody, talked to everybody. In fact, code enforcement told me they don't have anybody to contract to come and pick it up. The superintendent's avoided me. The teachers can't walk outside at recess and see what's that yard that looks like. Look at that. And I tell you whether it started January 12th. Mike Campbell did an article on it. What's this, August? Look it up. Channel 7 News come out and did a whole thing about the camper. You probably guys seen it on the news. Where they can't come out with the camper. Those people moved from that camper. It took me from January to April to get the camper removed. I own the property next to it. I own the 2 properties next to it. They moved to the school. I immediately complained because I know who they are. I had to go to the grand jury because I watched that man get beat. Nothing's done. I had the police out there. I had Zach Massey out there last week. Personally told me. He sat there on the phone and called code enforcement. I stood right there when he did it. Personally told me in 2 weeks, Roger, I'll get that cleaned up because I know how you are. Over 2 weeks, going cleaned up. I brought it to the chief of police tonight when I walked in the door. Asked her, I talked to her about it, showed her the pictures. When's it going to stop? These are elementary kids. Guess what? School starts tomorrow. So you're going to let drug addicts shoot dope while your kids are at school? Lincoln, come down East Street and look. Where the rec center used to be and it's torn down. Come down and look. Just come down and look. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a concern. Baron? Thanks, sir.
Thanks. I don't want my 3 minutes to start yet. I'd like to get the answers to the questions that I asked last meeting, and I was told that I would get them. Just like you did this time, you're going to answer the questions we asked this time. Next time, I don't know when. I asked some questions last time, and I was told that they would get back with me. It's been 2 weeks. No one. Several people up there, Rob, have my number, I'm sure. So no one has any answers for the questions I asked?
We'll have staff follow up with you. I don't know why it's happened, but we'll have staff follow up with you. It's not a joke.
Okay,
Brian, okay, thank you.
okay. Now we can start 3 minutes. Very good gun presentation earlier. I'd be curious to a couple numbers I'd like to know, because boy, howdy, is it a problem. How many of those gun crimes were committed by carry concealed weapon legal permit holders? That's question one. How many of those gun crimes, which is an astronomical number, I was blown away when I seen that, are the ones that are committed in self-defense? Were those thrown in there too? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, exactly, as you guys are, what's causing the gun violence. The other questions I have, that's all I have with that, and I'll come back, as you know, in 2 weeks, and hopefully I'll get the answers, or if anybody up there wants to get a hold of me between now and then, that'd be great. I'm going to direct it to Rob, or Mayor Rue, but I want everybody up there to be able to answer this question. Did anybody, mayor, or any council member, or any public official have any inkling about the fellows that came to town with their little ARs and things like that and marched around? I went down to try to get them. I had some questions. They got in a van and booked. They were in a hurry. They didn't want to answer my questions, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, did anybody on that panel right up there, or any law enforcement, have any heads up, or were they just as surprised as we were when we found out that that protest was going on, i.e., did they try to get a permit to do that? Is a permit required to do that? You know, I don't know. Are any, and if it was, any of those individuals, do they live here? That's my questions. My next question is, we all know what happened with the no vote and got turned down. Was there a contingency plan in place if that was to be voted down? If there was a no vote, was there a plan? Because that's a possibility when you put something up for vote. I was shocked. My phone's blowing up. I'm down there the next day, less than 12 hours later, and the stories get twisted. Everybody said they condemned the building. And I went, what? No, I don't think that's what happened. I think, what is it? Helpful? Oh, no. Homeful, not helpful.
Please.
Decided that, I'm sorry, I get them mixed up.
It's time up, Baron. Thank you. Come back next time, and we will have some answers during our comments. Okay? Thank you, sir. William Monahan. Thank you. Hey, sir, Leon, please. I'm going to remind everybody, no comments from the audience the next time you have to leave. Sir, go right ahead.
Monaghan, yeah,
No,
William
you're
Monaghan.
up. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to thank Tracy from last week's meeting of kind of standing up and doing some independent research. I also want to thank Dr. Eastrop and Crystal Brown for listening to their constituents and taking a step back from what looked like a squirrely deal. Also want to let people know there's a bunch of people who haven't been able to get inside. If at some point you're ready to leave, they can let somebody else in, I was told. But I also want to ask you, mention that this round table about racism was the city's way of hearing the public's concerns about the migrant influx. I think you misunderstand our concerns, because our concerns don't have anything to do with racism. They have to do with lack of affordable housing, increased risk to public health and safety, decreased response time from first responders, the ability to go to banks, BMV, Jobs and Family Services. So I really think you need to set up, and then when you look at the city's response team or accountability team on immigration, you've got the city manager who's been pushing this migration plan, and you have the prior city commissioner who signed us onto that Welcoming Springfield deal. So you're not listening to your citizens at all. Our concerns don't have anything to do with racism. They have to do with availability of housing and public health and safety. And in terms of accountability, if you're looking at for accountability from the people who got us into this squirrely deal, those aren't the people to be asking. You need a citizens task force, not a city a task force that's only serving the purposes of the city commission and the city manager.
Thank you. Hey, please, no applause. No applause, please. No applause whatsoever. Please, the whole idea is that we keep a forum that we can actually have constructive comments, okay? So please, no applause. Please, no comments from the audience. Thank you so much. David Plant? Thank you, sir.
I appreciate this chance to address the commission. I would like to take a few minutes to examine the current situation in Springfield. I'm speaking of two groups of people, what I would call newcomers to our city, and the longtime residents. According to worldpopulationreview.com, Springfield has a long-term population of 57,910. I believe that was as of May of this year. It's hard to know the exact number, but all I count have a population of 20,000 newcomers. This has resulted in a number of issues. First and foremost is the driving situation. There have been firsthand reports of wrong-way drivers on one-way streets, drivers ignoring stop signs, and red lights and other traffic issues. I I'm sure that there are others here who have many more firsthand experiences with that situation. There is the impact on businesses having to deal with language, cultural differences. There is the strain on public resources, both governmental and private services, including health. Part of our response is to help the newcomers adjust to our culture by offering a variety of training, including learning English, how to drive, and other things like simple customs of waiting in line for your turn instead of barging in front of the line. With a long-term population of under 60,000, approximately 20,000, we don't have resources to do this properly. And that depends on how many of the newcomers are willing to try and adjust to the customs and laws of their host country. I would like to ask with a rhetorical question to the commission, what are you, who have taken an oath to protect and serve citizens of the Springfield, Ohio, what are you going to do to address this situation? And again, I'm not expecting an answer that is just work. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you for your comments. Alex Mueller?
Good evening. My name is Alex Mueller. I am the president of AMPM Employment and also serve as the director for Southwest Ohio for the Ohio Staffing and Search Association. There's been many rumors and talks, of course, about questionable hiring practices throughout the city, and I thought it was important to come down and speak more so on a program that we operate and how we operate and some employment law. So first I want to talk about E-Verification, also known as E-Verify, which is a voluntary program sponsored by the Department of Homeland Security that AMPM operates through. Every employee would go through that particular program before they're hired at AMPM. So I'll stick as close to my 3 minutes as possible, but E-Verify is a web-based program that verifies our employees' eligibility to work in the United States. E-Verify cross-references the identification provided by the employees with the information that is on file with the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration. It's really important that everybody knows that this is not required by all employers. This is a voluntary program. Many of the employers do not participate in that. I would invite you to go to everify.gov and you can search any employer in the area or in the nation to see whether they participate in that program. Personally, I think that 22 other states have required that from all employers. I think we should do the same. Hiring with E-Verify. Per the guidelines of the Department of Homeland Security, employees are to complete an I-9 verification document. They're required to also produce supporting documentation for that I-9. As an employer, we are required to accept that documentation that appears genuine and correct. We check for holograms, correct fonts, formatting, and a host of other things on all documentation. We are uncertain. We will reference public records such as BMV websites from different states, the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Customs, and a host of others. Per federal guidelines, employers are required to process that E-Verify within 3 business days from that date of work. When we process an E-Verify case, which provides the information that the employee provided with us and their acceptable documentation, we receive either an instant result that says that individual has employment authorization or a tentative non-confirmation, which means the E-Verify needs more time. If they were to give us documentation such as a U.S. passport, permanent residency card, employment authorization cards, etc., we verify that presented information and cross-reference that with the Department of Homeland Security records to make sure that that identification that we've been presented with matches that picture on file. It's kind of like being a bouncer at a nightclub, if you will, as we're looking through these IDs and weeding out to make sure nothing is fake and so on. If you're getting a tentative non-confirmation, those individuals would have 8 federal working days per labor laws to then follow up with the Department of Homeland Security and also the Department of Social Security Administration to rectify those things. If for whatever reason they're unable to do that and it ends in a non-confirmation, what will then happen
Alex,
is...
thank you so much for your comments.
You're welcome.
It sounds like you got everything together there.
And I would
Appreciate
be
it.
happy if the commission would like an informal session. I'd be happy to give a 10-minute synopsis and a PowerPoint of
Thank
how
you.
this works.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You bet.
Yvonne Owens, if you could silence your phones, that would be appreciated. Yvonne Owens?
Evening.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know if I own a vacant lot, am I allowed or permitted to put a makeshift shack on that lot?
I will have staff follow up on that, and there are two people here that could answer that. Go ahead.
Okay. On Miami, off of Pleasant Street, in between Dibert and Fair Street, there's across the bike trail, there's a makeshift shack that is there. We questioned them what they were doing. They told us none of your business. Up on the door, there is a sign that says, never mind the owner, never mind the dog. Take that back, never mind the dog. Beware of the owner. And there's a gun on that poster that's pointed out. My neighbors and I sat there that evening watching the traffic. Our street is blocked because they're repairing Yellow Spring Street. So you can't go all the way down to the end. We sat there and watched the traffic. Once they noticed that we were watching, they then entered on the Fair Street side. Now, I can't say what's going on over there, okay? But I just wanted to let it be known, okay? Thank you.
You said Miami and Dibert, and then they started entering
It's on Miami,
Yes.
in between Dibert and Fair Street.
Thank you.
Across from the bike trail.
Thank you.
It sits back among trees. Okay?
Thank you. James Stewart?
Go ahead. Recently, the Proud Boys or some neo-Nazi group or the KKK came to Springfield, but for the sake of argument, I'll just refer to them as the Klan. The First Amendment protects citizens' rights to assemble peacefully, to protest the Vietnam War, to protest Iraq-Afghanistan war, to protest racial injustice. Citizens have a right to protest peacefully about the Rodney King beating, the George Floyd killing, Israeli attacks and killings, and Palestinian attacks and killings. Citizens can assemble to bring attention to LGBTQ rights, Black Lives Matter, to end global warming, to stop Ukraine war, to denounce the Republican agenda, to denounce the Democratic agenda. In 2019, 9 people of the KKK went to assemble in Dayton peacefully. Mayor Nan Whaley went public about the Klan approved permit to assemble. She went on the air and in the newspaper telling citizens of Dayton they needed to counter this hate speech by rallying and protesting at the assembly. Whaley brought in police officers, put some officers on horses surrounding the Klan assembly. The Klan Dayton protest incurred $650,000 in expenses to the city due to Whaley's anti-hate rally. That cost included assembling more than 350 police officers to keep the peace, as well as barriers and other materials used to keep the nine Klan-affiliated demonstrators separated from protesters. The ignorant and Neolithic membership of the Klan is declining rapidly. And much like the people who believe the earth is flat, every day educated people know the absolute truth. Only the uneducated can believe in a flat earth and the Klan. What the Klan needs is attention and media coverage. When these groups are refused these attentions, they become ignored and disappear entirely. I firmly believe the mayor of Springfield is an educated derelict, totally inept of real pressing issues of the community. The mayor surprised me yesterday by making a brilliant statement on constitutional rights. and a clever decision not to alert the media, which could have created a manufactured crisis like Mayor Nanwali did. The mayor resolved the Klan issue peacefully and without costing the city hundreds of thousands of dollars over 10 completely ignorant, Neolithic, backward-thinking, dumbass people. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Beth Donahoe?
All right. Agent John Douglas was a FBI profiler. His career as a profiler provided inspiration for television shows like Criminal Minds. John was with the FBI's elite serial crime unit. In his book, he wrote, "Serial killers are, by definition, successful killers who learn from their experience. Perpetrators of different kinds of violence often have a history of intimate partner abuse. Several known serial killers and the majority of mass murderers have a history of domestic violence. Yes, there are often unique game plans that batters use to keep their victims in line. However, in Springfield, our police and prosecutors have failed to make obvious connections. Springfield has serial domestic violence offenders, and they are one step away from becoming serial rapists and serial killers. Listen, commissioners of Springfield, you need to understand this connection now. You need to recognize what is going on and put an end to this. Springfield leads all cities in the state of Ohio in the number of yearly reported rapes per capita. Now remember this, only 60% of all rape is reported. Clark County leads the state of Ohio in requests for domestic violence protective orders per capita. Yes, we are number one out of all 88 counties. Domestic violence is pervasive and insidious. The majority of domestic violence cases involve isolated incidents. However, a subset of perpetrators engage in persistent and escalating pattern of abuse. Out of all domestic violence cases presented in court in 2022, SDVC has identified about 200 people through criminal arrest records, probable cause reports, and court case documents that fit this profile. Serial domestic violence offenders. 10 men are roaming free in Springfield and have a lifetime of over 25 domestic violence arrests and other criminal charges. There are over 100 men in Springfield with 15 domestic violence arrests and other assault, robbery, and gun charges. There are 75 Springfield men with at least 10 domestic violence arrests and other criminal charges. All these men exhibit the same common personality traits as serial killers, serial rapists, and serial pedophiles. And the same essential criteria and classifications exhibited by serial killers, serial rapists, and serial pedophiles. Thank you.
Thank you for your concern. Melissa Skinner?
Didn't type anything tonight, but my statement here this evening is, I feel like that as a commission, as the chief of police and so forth, that if we could come together every 2 weeks and have some solutions, have some answers for the public to address concerns and say, this is what has happened from 2 weeks from now. This is some problems that's been solved. The chief of police could bring some statistics and say, this is how many cars we've towed. This is how many illegal drivers we've taken off the street. We're not allowing them to just drive off. We've had this many accidents where they've left their vehicles in the middle of the street. I've witnessed it myself. And we have some actual numbers. I've put a call in to a detective over 3 different incidences on my block just since May. Still waiting on an answer. So as of tomorrow, every day, I am calling that detective and I'm going to leave a message till I get an answer. There is no reason in a week and a
Who's
half.
that? Please don't speak. Who spoke? You can go ahead and head on out for me. Thank you so much. Yep, thank you for your information, but you would go ahead and leave respectfully.
That you cannot get a call back or get an answer for situations that are concerning to you. That just starts to make people even more upset. There should be answers. And I feel like that if we can come together and we can start solving, I don't care how small or how little they are, it may seem little, but they're not, because then they're created big. And I feel like that we need to do our due diligence with every penny that we have with the city and say, can we afford to spend this dollar? Can we afford to do this? And if we can come together and we can be the city that I was proud to be born in, not one that now I want to sell my home and move. I have a business here. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care about those things. I want for when my son leaves in the middle of the night, Rob, and I've got to worry about him driving a vehicle, that my son's going to come home because he has business to do sometimes in the middle of the night and he has to come home. And it's not illegal business, it's legal business. And I feel like if we can come together and we can get some answers, let's start getting some answers. Let's start getting some solutions. Small, big, whatever. Let's start moving forward and let's bring Springfield back to what it used to be. That's what we need. And if you guys can't do it, then step aside and we'll vote somebody in that can, or we'll put a new manager in that can. I don't care who it is. A new chief of police. I don't care at this point. I just want my Springfield back. That's what I want.
Thank you, Melissa. West Babian?
My name is Wes Babian, and I want to start by saying thank you for creating a way in which we can actually speak and be heard by one another in this setting. Thank you, Mayor Rue, for that. Last Saturday, there were about 12 masked men parading around here, a minority spouting hate and nonsense. While at the same time, there were thousands of people of all shapes, sizes, colors, and faces open, joyously celebrating the American classical music, jazz. That was and is the majority, I believe. I believe in the words of no less than Richard M. Nixon when he said there is a silent majority, and I believe there's a silent majority in our community. Even though tonight it may not be apparent. I will not be silent about the new neighbors who have come into our community. I hear the frustration, rightly so. There is no way to anticipate or prepare for such an overwhelming number of newcomers. Obviously, the numbers are stressing systems that are already under stress before they ever came. I will say that to the commission that it is not abundantly clear to me what shape the overall response is being taken. There are no quick fixes, but there can be progress. What I do see is newcomers, new neighbors, in stores, on streets, and in other places minding their own business and managing what is for them a new environment. The newcomers are here legally and want to work, and there is a need for work. Newcomers that I know are receptive to kindness and want to, in the best of their ability, help themselves. Our community has been in a population decline for nearly 70 years. We need more and new people. There certainly are growing pains. Such has been true in the circumstances from time immemorial. I believe that there are many others in this community who, while they're not sure how best to respond, are not of the same opinion of many of those who are speaking here tonight. With a little research, one will be able to find ways to make donations or volunteer or otherwise provide support for our new neighbors. And this is also true regarding others who have been long-term neighbors.
Thank you, Wes,
in
so
this
much for your
community.
comments. I want to say that this forum that we brought up earlier that the NAACP is putting together is a forum on immigration, all things and comments about immigration, and folks that are here can be dialogued in a safe environment. Charlie Bush?
Good evening. I would like to read, and this was for immediate release from Shelter's attorney that was given to the newspaper, but for some reason was never published. So, Shelter Inc. corrects the record on recent New Sun report. Springfield, Ohio, August the 12th, 2024. The Springfield News and Sun recent report, Clark County pulls funding after homeless shelter closes, calls issue sickening, contain many inaccuracies regarding Shelter Inc. In particular, the article quoted a county official as stating that funding could not be given to Shelter due to pending litigation. This statement is inaccurate. There is currently no litigation pending between the county and Shelter, and in fact, Shelter and the county are actively working to amicably and efficiently resolve any dispute that may exist between them. Shelter would also like to note that it was one of the first to respond to calls at 9:16 a.m. on Tuesday, August the 6th, 2024, to assist with displaced persons from the city's sudden closure of the Executive Inn shelter, transitioning affected individuals into alternative shelters as needed and physically assisting with their move. Shelter remains devoted to its mission and will continue to serve the underprivileged and those facing homelessness in Clark County to the best of its ability. Please contact Nisha Davis at 937-323-5601 for comment on this release. And I just wanted to make that delivered to the public because it was not published in the newspaper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Glenda Bailey?
Before I start, I just want to say to the people I'm about to offend, don't take it personally. Okay. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I attended the NAACP's racism meeting and realized that what I saw was a political kabuki theater complete with a wailing Haitian, Black Panther-style intimidation except in better suits, self-loathing white leftists, and a ringleader at the center of it all. I've seen this movie before. The majority of attendees were nonprofits, high-earning leftist whites, the NAACP, and the Nation of Islam, who are all doing the same thing to Haitians, exploiting them. Haitians willingly allow themselves to be exploited because they want something out of Americans too. Nonprofits want more government funding, high-earning whites want to feel superior to working-class whites, the NAACP wants more political clout, the NOI wants more menacing boots on the ground, and Haitians want to continue taking unlimited taxpayer
please leave,
funding.
sir.
The
Sir,
only
thank
thing
you for being
average
here.
working-class whites
Thank you.
want is to be left alone, to live our lives without others demanding more and more of the taxes that we already work 6 months out of the year to pay for. The Nation of Islam is the largest black nationalist organization in the U.S. Its leader, Louis Farrakhan, alleged that the Ashkenazi Jews were responsible for the slave trade, that they conspire to control the government, the media, and Hollywood, and has labeled Jews as termites. It's hypocritical that the only reason those groups want more Haitians to replace Springfield's white population is because they're black, which is true, genuine racism at its very foundation. And for the NAACP to align itself with known anti-Semites like the NOI belies Miss Williams' shrieks against racism and destroys her credibility. Would the city of Springfield allow the Aryan nations or radical Muslims to police a meeting in commission chambers. That is a very slippery slope, and Springfield just set a dangerous precedent. Ms. Williams claimed that the NOI was policing because she's had death threats, and if true, I presume that she's filed police reports with the city to address them. The NOI's presence was for one reason only, as a tool of intimidation meant to send a message to Springfield's official leaders. Perhaps the alleged Nazis who attended the Jazz Blues Fest was the reaction. Whites comprise 6.5% of the world's population, and white countries and communities have been targeted for destruction by the same groups. Ireland is burning, Great Britain is a police state for whites, literal white genocide is happening in South Africa, and white countries are losing their ethnic identities. Accusations of racism against Haitians are meant to distract working class whites from the fact that we're the ones being targeted for extinction. Ironically, the only person convicted of a hate crime against Haitians in Springfield is a black man, yet that was not addressed. Thank you.
Diane Daniels? Diane Daniels? Okay. Shannon Stanley? Shannon Stanley?
I was out and about yesterday, driving around Springfield. I was looking at the giant holes in some of our buildings. I noticed all of the old familiar spots bearing new signs in an unfamiliar language. I watched as groups of strangers walked around the city like lost tourists, and it was like a punch in the gut. A terrible sadness came over me, and I began to cry. I immediately started to think back to when I was little, walking from my grandma's house on South Fountain through downtown and all the way to Snyder Park, going to Wren's to get new school clothes and shoes, the excitement of the mall for lunch at the Blue Fox, or even better to see Santa, riding down High Street, admiring the beauty of those stately homes and their amazing architecture, dropping pennies in the fountain and making wishes. And now, all those warm memories are becoming fuel to the fire of anger inside of me. I feel like we have been invaded by some sort of pest. I'm angry that my friends and family are packing up and moving away. I'm angry that foreigners are using up the resources that were set up for the Americans that reside here. I'm angry that another country's flag was being flown in our city. I'm angry when I see our businesses and recreational areas littered with garbage left by people that do not know or understand our laws and culture and are making no attempt to learn about them. And let me be clear, this is not about race. This is about people being given the privilege of coming here from another country and having no respect for our people, our land, or our life's work. People living their life here the way they did in Haiti, angry, stealing, polluting, living in filth, and acting like animals. These are not civilized people. Opening containers in our grocery stores, helping themselves to what's inside and throwing the rest onto the shelves and floors. Pulling off of the highway to publicly clean and gut the roadkill lying there in front of anyone that passes by. Stealing animals from farmers and leaving their severed heads at the side of an old school where children play. Relieving themselves in public. Making some barbaric stew out of the birds that live in our park. This is insanity, and it has to stop. What will become of Springfield? Where will we be in 5 years? The thought terrifies me. Will it be some sort of dystopian wasteland with most of our original residents having moved away and those that cannot afford to move being locked inside their homes, living in fear? This thought is keeping me awake at night. I just want the old Springfield back. I know it was far from perfect, but at least it was still ours. Thank you.
Kim Darnell?
I will keep this brief. I am Kim Darnell. I am the housing manager with OIC of Clark County. I was at the meeting last Monday, and as OIC and the shelter promised, we were on site and made sure that there was no one that was unsheltered when Homeful walked away. I had a case manager at the hotel waiting for the intake people to send them over from the shelter. Joanna from the shelter has all our numbers, so I'm going to defer the rest of that to her. But we are here, as we promised, to support the homeless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, no applause. Noel Excuse me? Sir, you can go ahead and leave, please. Thank you so much. Thanks, Otis. Thank you.
Yeah, you can leave too.
I appreciate you. Noel Bales? Thank you. Noel? Thank you.
I live at 426 Northwestern Avenue. Miss Skinner, who I'm not trying to put on the spot, is my neighbor.
Just talk to me, ma'am. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
And I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me, I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move. He said, we can't do this anymore. He said, it's killing both of us mentally. I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens. I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status, and you're protecting them, and I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed. But who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me? I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna Jackson?
Good evening. My name is Joanna Jackson. I'm here to speak on behalf of Sheltered Inc. I just want to bring to the community's attention and to the commission's attention. So last Tuesday, we received a call from Logan Cobbs at 9:16. Due to the unexpected nature of the call, it took Sheltered Inc. staff approximately an hour to arrive to the crisis. Nashay Davis and myself were the first on site to assist with securing shelters alternatives for displacing the clients. Clients were extremely angry that they were told they must exit and do so immediately. The overall scene of the situation was beyond distressing. Ms. Cobbs did open up 2 rooms for the Sheltered Inc. staff to complete intakes. Once intakes were completed, clients were notified of where they would be transitioning to. The city of Springfield did provide transportation to clients. However, it took multiple trips for some clients due to the amount of belongings the clients had. Due to limited space at Sheltered Inc. and partnering agencies assisted with placing clients in hotels. Those partners were OIC, Springfield City Schools, and Project Woman. The Nehemiah Foundation also did assist the clients by obtaining storage facilities so their belongings were safely stored. Mental Health did reach out to offer support and see if they could be of service to clients that are experiencing a traumatic situation. There were 22 families that were displaced from Homeful. 17 of those families we did rehouse. 3 of them did not ask shelter, and 3 of them were self-resolved. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not going to receive any more cards. Gary's the last one there. Elena Bradley?
Gary, you said you're the one.
You're the last one. Just no more cards after Gary. Elena Bradley?
Good evening, Elena Bradley, homeless advocate for Springfield, Clark County. I just wanted to thank the community partners that showed up to help the families and individuals that were displaced early Tuesday morning, along with the volunteers that also showed up to participate, worked through the night, through the storm, and the clients that jumped right in to help as well. There was a statement that was made that Sheltered Inc. stopped sending referrals to the other partnering Homeful emergency shelter. That was not the case. Sheltered Inc. Is the community access point, had made 133 head of household referrals in the last year. Homeful had notified Sheltered Inc. and also Clark County and the city of Springfield that they were not going to be accepting referrals at the end of May 29th through June, and so no referrals were made at that time, and Sheltered Inc. was operating as an access point with a callback list. So I just want to share with everyone, as we come together as a community and face all these challenges, that we do come together and work collaboratively together for a solution. We can come up here and share numbers and statistics and go back and forth and who's right and who's wrong. But at the end of the day, out of those 66 individuals that were impacted on Tuesday morning, they woke up with a knock at their door and they had no place to go. The youngest person that was impacted was 2 months old, okay? We're talking about humility here. And so it takes to be a leader, you have to have humility. So I think as a community, just coming together, asking those important questions, coming to the table with solutions so we can do better on behalf of our community, because the individuals that were impacted on Tuesday, it was very traumatic. It was very uncomfortable for all those that had to be there and try to immediately find some type of resolution for those that were impacted. Thank you.
Mark Sanders?
Good evening. Wasn't going to speak tonight, but I felt compelled to. Seems like every 2 weeks, I don't think the city can become any more divided. And it's almost like people take it as a challenge. So I want to take and speak on one thing. This is something that everybody in this auditorium, on both sides of that desk, need to be tasked with. So our district, obviously, we're about 9 days away from a very tragic anniversary. Kind of ignited this brush fire. I took a job with Northwestern driving a school bus, and today was our day to do a dry run, if you would. So my route is to transport students from Northwestern to STEM, CTC, ESC locations. I travel Clifton, Selma, Pleasant, Limestone, those areas. Today I had an individual, I'm just going to describe the vehicle and leave it at that. It was a newer SUV with dark windows. I was in front of Hayward School, I believe that's the correct pronunciation. Doing 25 speed limit. I'm in a 60-foot yellow missile. The transportation director and assistant director were on the bus with me. I got within 50 feet and I was just about 1 or 2 blocks north of the school, and a SUV, the brake lights had been on, which would made me notice it. But within 50 feet, the person tried to make a left U-turn in front of me. Next week, every child in this city and this county are going to be transported by buses, private vehicles, and basically pedestrian traffic. It's everyone in this auditorium, everyone. You need to go home and talk to people. Tell them to slow down, look what they're doing, and watch out for these kids. We can sit here and bicker and argue all we want, but we can't let the kids be hurt. So leave here with that. That's it. That's all I got to say.
Thanks, Mark. Jude Earlywine?
I'm Jude Earlywine, 1255 South Mountain Avenue. I go to Springfield High School. I'm in the marching band and I'm 14 years old. My favorite color is purple. This is short, okay. And I like tacos. Humanization. That's what I did just then. I made myself relatable. The opposite of this is dehumanization. This happened in our town on Saturday. A group of neo-Nazis, by the way, that means new Nazis? I didn't know that. Got out of a U-Haul and paraded around spreading hate to everyone but white people. They communicated that these religious minorities and these ethnic minorities and about 1 billion other minorities are not welcome in Springfield. This is not true. These neo-Nazis were dehumanizing everyone I just mentioned. Now, I want to draw attention to a guy I know. He's hardworking. A couple years ago, he got a stable job at a place here in town. This guy has a great work ethic, and he's all around a great dude. A month or so ago, he was driving home. He thought he was being followed. He was obviously scared by this. He was frightened. He stopped for a few minutes, and the stalker stopped as well. He started driving. They started driving. He was still being followed. He was completely terrified. Sorry. He was completely terrified. He went home, still being followed. But a man has to get his sleep, so he went home and got some shut eye. He woke in the morning to find his car was completely destroyed. The tires, the exterior, the windows. It was totaled. Luckily for him, his insurance covered it. But the price increased, obviously. And in his words, he's terrified and completely freaked out every time he's drived since then. This is horrible news. Imagine if something like that happened to you. Since moving from Haiti 2 years ago, he's felt very stable. I mean, this dude comes from a violence-torn country for a peaceful life in the U.S., and has this happen to him? You gotta feel bad for him. But he's human. He's just like everyone around us. A lot of what I've heard today is, well, dehumanizing. These people are not a number or a statistic. They are people, humans. But we need to work through our frustrations and welcome our new community members to our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Ruby? Doesn't matter.
Thank you, Rob. I've been here before, and just again, want to say I interact with people out in the community, and the vast majority of people that I run into are very grateful for the work that you guys are doing and recognize the challenge that you face. On Saturday, I received a picture of the people marching in our city, and shortly thereafter, I received a statement from the city, and I just want to say thank you for responding quickly. Thank you for labeling the group a hate group and for restating your commitment, your opposition to discrimination and to hate. I hope that collectively as a community, I think we owe this to our all minority groups to acknowledge that what happened was an overt act of racism and an act of intimidation. I'm a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, which calls us to love our enemies and to pray for them. I think there are four things we need to do in the face of overt acts of racism. One is to lament, to collectively grieve over what happened in our community. Second is to repent. And many of us, many may say, I've never committed an overt act of racism, but we are all complicit. We have benefited from racism, and we have often failed to correct it. And I hope there's a renewed commitment to all of us to work together. The third thing we need to do is to stand with people who are oppressed. And I think it's important that all of us stand with our Black residents, our Haitian residents, our Jewish residents, Muslim residents, LGBTQ residents, and any other group who are often insulted by displays of the swastika. And the final thing we need to do is correct oppression and work together to correct the things that are wrong in our city. And I'm actually pretty optimistic about the future of our city and the chance that this is going to motivate us to move forward and create something better. So thank you for your work.
Thank you, Carl. I have Al Overholzer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's the actual first council meeting that I've ever been to, let alone getting up and speaking. I was going, yeah, no. But first thing I want to say is, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm not sitting in one of your seats. We do have a problem here in Springfield. I know that sometimes I feel the same way as some of the other people in here. You know, I don't want to be in Springfield anymore. Okay, the house I have, I've been in it since 1974. Here a couple years ago, right when we started, accepting these people into the country, the house across the street from mine was bought. And it was remodeled, and boy, I know that was a job, But at the same time, next thing I know, I have 20 Haitians living in it. I believe that the city ended up, evicting these people, or the lady that was over them purchased land out in the county. So then they were going to the county. They're there for 30 days, but then they move on to a more permanent residence, whether it be city, county, or wherever. My next experience with this, and I think this is where a lot of us are having a problem, I really wish we could deal with this as a community, with the council instead of going through NAACP or, all this other rigmarole, because we are a community. But my experience at work. Okay, I work IT for a living. I'm also a videographer. I do video editing. I have these Haitians along with Somali, Mexican, Spanish, I have them all. With the Haitians, they need extra attention because in all honesty, the best way that I found to train them, and I'm saying this from a company point of view, okay, is most of them, if we would match them up to our life, it's going to be, they have a kindergarten to second grade education. The state teaches people on their public courses at a fifth to sixth grade education level. If you can do something visually, they can see something visually, no words, no nothing else, they can learn, and they will learn. But we actually have to step down that low and slowly bring them up to our level. And that takes a while. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Armstrong?
Last week was kind of a shock. I didn't speak because I don't know too much about homeful and sheltering, but I learned by listening. There was lying going on. There was bad money, as I've been saying about hotels and stuff. Stupid spending, less for more. And I find out there's Lane, the woman that's making $273. She's not into helping people. She's into helping her pocketbook. Then I find out Groundworks, an LLC, Castle and Cecil, that I've mentioned those 5 units. I find out somebody right in front of me is involved in that partnership with that woman. And you've stood there and stared at me, never answer me, never say crap.
Please direct your comment directly to me. Thank you, Gary.
I was just looking at you, but I didn't think you'd like me to
Go right
direct
ahead.
it. I will say, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, thank you.
if you're involved in that, tell me. Be a man about it. Because I've had 10 people tell me that you had all these LLCs you've been renting to Haitians over and over. That's not a crime. But not disclosing it is. The word, I can't say it without using an expletive. It's, that's not how I treat people. I'm always upfront about who I am, what I'm doing, and how I'm doing it, and why I'm doing it. And because you can't represent the people here unless you're honest. There wasn't honesty going on. Why you didn't let Shoulder Ink in there? I saw what was happening. I said, girl, just say it. Somebody's lying. Use the word lie. That's why they didn't get their proposal in there, and you wanted to pay more. Same old, same old. We got to clear the house. The things happening here. We need to get a new board. We need all souls. You got 2 souls that got big hearts. I need 5 souls. 5 people that will be honest and solve problems. I mean, you don't solve a problem until you step out. You had all these people, you should have taken this thing out. You knew this was going to happen. You should have had it out in the plaza where all the people, and make them be quiet, make them listen. Because I give everybody one thing. They need to have more than 3 minutes to give you a real idea of what the problem and what they need to vent out. That's how you let the steam out of it when people are all steamed up. It relieves them. Then you solve the problems. This I can't do. These items I can work on. Then we have a place to start. But I've seen for 2 years, the same LLC man that's still living in his 4 unit, you haven't done shit. Oh, excuse me. God, I couldn't help myself. I said that word. Because you haven't. Why? It's because he's an LLC who happened to hold this office and you can't do anything about it. We got to clear the house. Then peace and coming together. That's when you come together, is when you clear the house.
Right here, Gary.
and bring
Speak
it
to me,
down.
please, sir. Thank you.
Need to sign, I'll have it here.
Okay.
I'll be outside every meeting.
Thank you. That concludes our comments. We'll take a break, and then we'll begin our business meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you be able to check to just make sure the doors did stay unlocked?
We'll go ahead. We're going to go ahead and begin our business portion. If we could quiet down, please. Thank you for staying. We'll go ahead and begin with our first readings by title only.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an airport vegetation management agreement 2024 to 2028 with Brian Harbage to manage vegetation growth on 55.08 acres at the Springfield-Beckley Municipal Airport and
Regina,
confirming...
just a minute, please. Folks, if you could quiet your talking, please, or step outside to finish up conversations. Thank you. Go ahead, Regina.
And confirming and approving services provided by Brian Harbage from June 1, 2024 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 4 to the agreement with App Architecture LLC for the design of the South Charleston Pike Fire Station to increase the agreement for an amount not to exceed $3,840 for a total amount not to exceed $632,989.94. Amending ordinance number 91-90 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing section 918.04 entitled Stormwater Utility Service Charges, ESU Rates. Amending ordinance number 91-90 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing section 911.02 entitled Service Charge Rates and section 917.02 entitled Service Charge Rates. Confirming and approving a grant agreement with the Ohio Office of Budget and Management to accept funding in an amount up to $750,000 to be used for an A.B. Graham Memorial, authorizing the city manager, finance director, and law director to do all things necessary to implement said grant agreement and comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements. Confirming and approving the lease termination agreement and mutual release by and between Reed Park Limited and the city of Springfield, Ohio, to terminate the lease, operation, and maintenance of Reed Park Golf Course.
These are first readings. We will not be voting on these tonight. City Manager, do you want to make any comments about first readings?
I'll touch base on 2, and then I'll actually have Finance Director Eviston speak to 2 items. The first one I just wanted to highlight was the $750,000 received from the state of Ohio. This is additional money the state is providing for the I-70-72 interchange. When the 70 widening project first started or initiated, ODOT would pay for landscaping improvements and beautification efforts. That changed as that project drug on. ODOT no longer paid for those, but the state is providing funding through this specific item, the Strategic Capital Investment Fund, for us to improve the landscaping at that 7072 gateway into our community, and will go well with the widening project as well as the improvements that are coming to South Limestone here in the coming years. And then the last one, I just wanted to touch base because we've had it on there. We had the agreement or lease to purchase agreement with the new entity. This is simply with the past owners or former owners of the golf course, making sure that we have the right documentation in place in terms of the lease termination with that owner. So this is the previous owners. We have entered into that new lease to purchase with the new owners, and they are currently operating the Reed facility.
Thank you. Is there other comments from commissioners or questions? Dr. Estrop?
Thank you. I think first of all, I want to thank the previous owners of and operators of Reed Golf Course. They bailed us out of a difficult situation, and I just want to thank them. seems well deserved. Second thing, I drove by the South Charleston Pike Fire Station today, and man, they are moving on that. I didn't know if you wanted to comment. It looks to me like they could be under roof before winter gets.
That is the plan. So they have started putting the trusses up on the main part, and we'll continue that with the bays, the 3 bays out there. And the tentative completion date is April of next year when it would open.
Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, Katie?
Yes, Commissioners, I will speak to items 212-24 and 213-24. And I do apologize, the information that was provided with the RCA that is available on the city's website for the agenda attached to this item is displayed up on the screen. But again, you can access that and see the numbers a little bit more clearly on the city's website at springfieldohio.gov. So these 2 items are related to recommended increases to water, sewer, and stormwater rates over the next 2 years. These increases are necessary to cover rising operational costs, maintain and upgrade infrastructure, and ensure reliable delivery of services while balancing inflation and increasing environmental regulations. 12%, 1%, and 25-cent increases are recommended on January 1st, 2025 and January 1st, 2026 for water, sewer, and stormwater respectively. The net increase as shown on this infograph is 4.23% in 2025 and 4.42% in 2026. The 2025 average bill is 1% higher, that's reflected down in the bottom right, than the statewide average from 2022. That is the latest statewide data available to compare, which we know updated state information would reflect that we would remain below the statewide average in 2025 and 2026, since we are comparing to 2022 data. We know that because since 2021, the cost to treat our water has increased over $1 million annually. Examples of those increases are also highlighted on the screen. A 4-foot high fire hydrant has increased from $1,815 to $3,117. The city's contract for lime alone has increased from $798,000 in 2021 to $1.6 million in 2024. To provide some additional background, the Finance Department worked collaboratively with the Service Department to update utility rate models, estimating revenue and expenses over the next 10 years in order to recommend rate increases needed over the next 2 years in order to sustain the quality and safety of the essential services that we deliver to our customers.
Thank you. I would probably have that available also when we do a second reading, so we can re-explain that. Okay, Clerk, would you go ahead and proceed with second readings?
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 1.22 acres located at 0 West North Street, Springfield, Ohio, from CN2 Neighborhood Commercial District, UPOD, to CN1 Neighborhood Commercial District, UPOD.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Are there comments from the audience? Thank you.
What's currently located at that address?
Staff?
Yes, so that is currently vacant property that sits directly west of the Rite Aid and Lee's. It was owned by the hospital, Springfield Regional, and they're working with a private developer to sell that land or that ground. And I know one of the developments is a coffee shop.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you. Okay. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston? Yes. Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the finance director to purchase up to 2,200 tons of rock salt for the 2024-2025 winter season from Morton Salt Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $148,610 through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Am I correct that we had some salt left over from this year? So we were able to reduce somewhat the purchase we're making this year? Is my memory clear on that or not?
That is correct, Commissioner. We had 3,200 tons of salt left over from last year, and this contract requires us to buy up to 90%, but no more than 110% of what we've requested. When you add those two numbers together, that gets us to as much salt as we've used in the biggest winter since 1992, which is what helps me sleep at night.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Sorry. Computers. Authorizing the city manager to accept conveyance of an easement and dedicating those certain rights in real estate for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, operating, and maintaining stormwater, sewer, and sanitary sewer infrastructure.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll, or Aaron?
The conveyance that they're speaking to, are there particular neighborhoods that they're, here, I'm the gutter sewer.
This is
guy.
specifically on the Cohen Brothers property. So this is part of the Henry Street sewer replacement project, and there is a section of sewer that runs directly through Cohen Brothers that is a public sewer. And so having the necessary easement for the installation of that sewer to address that project.
So this doesn't affect storm sewers anywhere else in the city except that project?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Emergency ordinances?
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to execute an interaction and cooperation agreement with the Clark County Park District for the purpose of permitting the Park District Police to operate on properties maintained by the Clark County Park District within the city and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'd ask city manager to go ahead and comment on this relationship and what is going on with, as we develop the secure.
Yes, as Chief Elliott's coming up to speak briefly to this as well, I just want to address this is again the partnership and the force multiplier with working with Clark County Park District, who has a ranger service to help within our parks, but puts that agreement in place that lays out that relationship with our Springfield Police Division.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. So this is the agreement similar to additional, like Springfield Regional and Kettering Hospital. Those entities also have their own police division, essentially, but this is an agreement on how we operate because it's still within the jurisdiction of the city of Springfield. So how we respond and assist with maybe felony cases, who's going to respond. It kind of defines those things, equipment standards on what equipment they should be, working with us on to be able to communicate, radio systems, things like that. So it's just an agreement that helps define those roles and what's expected of our officers and their officers.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Are comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and National Water Services for the well pump cleaning and rehabilitation at the water treatment plant to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $19,372 $72 for a total amount not to exceed $949,992, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving the execution of a subrecipient agreement to accept an ARPA Ohio Ambulance Impacted Industry Program grant in an amount up to $260,999 through the State of Ohio Office of Budget and Management, authorizing the city manager, director of finance, and law director to perform all acts and execute all documents considered necessary to fulfill the city's obligations under said subrecipient agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners?
I was just wondering if, Mr. Heck, you might explain this in a little more detail. What are we getting here? I'll put $1 on the table to make it an easy 261 if that's what it takes. But
I'll have Chief King speak to this specific item.
Thank you. The state of Ohio now is changing some of the rules and expanding the capacity to accept grants for additional areas that they weren't previously for utilization of the ARPA dollars. So they put out another call for reimbursement of additional personnel above your normal staffing levels to help respond to the COVID pandemic. So we submitted a request for $2.3-ish million to the state to provide those additional fundings back. Our percentage that they decided that we won was $260,000. So that would be a reimbursement to salaries that were paid to the division.
thank you very much.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 4 to the agreement between the city and Marker Incorporated doing business as Marker Construction for the construction of a new fire station to be located on South Limestone Street to increase the agreement in an amount not to exceed $42,659.46 for a total amount not to exceed $7,265,320.46 and declaring an emergency therein.
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Brian, is this the final list of?
Yeah, this allows us to
Basically.
finalize out the contract with Marker for the South Limestone Station. I'm proud to report that station opened up and started providing service July 23rd and is operational. And as you know, this station is unique in the partnership with Clark State College. And the first of 10 new recruits for the Springfield Fire Rescue Division started their training academy yesterday.
Super.
Excellent. The comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. New items?
Yes. Consenting to the reappointment of Eric Wise to the Airport Advisory Board and declaring an emergency therein.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
I just want to thank Eric and the other members of the Airport Advisory Committee. They worked very hard on behalf of the people of Springfield to make Springfield Airport not only a great place for innovation, but also a great place for general aviation. So thanks to all the members of the Airport Advisory Committee, and we're happy to have Eric back with.
Thank you. Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Reappointing Tracy Yates to the Civil Service Commission and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Just want to say I appreciate Tracy willing to serve again. She served well on this commission, so I appreciate that. Any other comments from commissioners?
I do want to say thank you to Ms. Skinner for your comments tonight. I'm so sorry. I went right into other comments.
This
I'm
is just,
sorry. I'm
we're almost
zipping.
done. We're almost there. We're close. Okay.
I was excited
So
about
we're
that.
reappointing Tracy. You got anything on Tracy?
I
No,
don't.
Trey? All right. All right. Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Okay, clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett? Yes. Mrs. Houston? Yes. Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Before we go into comments, is there any committee reports?
Commissioners, I just want to update you. I know one item that came out of the forum last week was specifically related to driving, and obviously there's continues to be concerns expressed about the driving just in general in the streets of Springfield, and so we're working a couple different things with police in terms of traffic control, traffic speeding enforcement, and stuff like that. That Chief Elliott is working on, but then also Jason By, Deputy Director of Public Safety and Operations, specifically has been working with the state of Ohio and the Bureau of Motor Vehicles on offering driving classes to our new neighbors in our community and providing access to driving simulators as well. And again, one of the things brought up at the forum was specifically about traffic and driving and so forth. And so I know we're going to work with Denise and others to promote that more widely. The last one that Jason was a part of and helping plan, we did have our highest numbers, I believe 45 participated, but we want to continue to grow that and get more and more people involved and engaged in learning. Because again, in the state of Ohio, once you turn 18, you don't have to go through any formal driving training. And so we want to make sure we continue to offer opportunities that would allow people to be successful behind the wheel.
Thank you. Before we go into comments, I just would like Chief to comment or have a statement regarding the hate group that was here. You could speak to that, please.
Good evening, Mayor, and thank you, Commission. So Saturday, we did have what was identified as a neo-Nazi hate group that came to the city of Springfield in protest. What I can assure you is that when they were here, we had it completely covered. We had our officers completely monitoring the situation. We also recognized that there were several events going on downtown, so we made sure that we had multiple officers in that area, specifically for Jazz Fest. We had a lot of officers kind of in the mix at Jazz Fest while this was going on, just ensuring everybody's safety. I know there is concern, when you have people coming with semi-automatic weapons, handguns, carrying flags with swastikas. That is definitely deeply concerning for our community, and I know it's a traumatic event for people. But what we want to assure that we are doing everything we can to keep our community safe, and there were no direct incidents involving that. We contacted the FBI. We had the FBI working directly with us at our division at the time. So when I assure you that we had everything in place to make sure we were identifying anybody involved and assisting the FBI with that investigation, we've been cooperating from the beginning.
Just a point of clarity, if there would have been an engagement with this group, like another group coming out and speaking against them or representing peace or just representing anything they don't stand for, could that have been a problem? If more people had known about this and kind of engaged this group, could that have been a problem for our community?
So I think there's potential for a dangerous situation there. Anytime you have two groups who don't agree on something,
Right, of course.
going back and forth, there creates that potential, especially when you have some rhetoric that is involved. You're protected under your First Amendment right. So both individuals or both groups that would be participating in that, obviously it would depend on what is being said specifically, because then when you start talking about, inciting violence or things like that, then that's when there's another level of interaction with our officers. But yes, there could have been that potential. I know there was a lot of concern, and understandably so, from our community.
Sure.
But I just want to assure you, as your chief of police in our Springfield Police Division, I see the work that our men and women do every single day and how hard that they do work to protect this community. Just because you may not see something or maybe not see like a huge presence of officers in a situation doesn't mean we don't have it covered.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Commissioner?
Thank you. Ms. Skinner, I do appreciate your comments, and I will definitely be working to meet those standards that you set this evening. I definitely appreciate everything that you stated. I also want to thank everyone that stayed after our break. So I really, truly appreciate you guys staying on board with us and hearing all the different ordinances that are happening in the city. Thank you guys so much.
Dr. Estrop?
I just want to comment on the Blues and Jazz and Blues Festival. Man, that was a good time with great music. And as one of the speakers tonight pointed out, people from all over Springfield, Clark County, frankly, Southwest Ohio were there and enjoying themselves with some incredible talent. And I want to thank the Kiwanis Club and the Springfield Symphony Jazz Orchestra for pulling off a great event for our city. And Chief, as I understand it, there were no problems associated with this event, no incidents. Everybody behaved themselves and enjoyed themselves. And I'm just delighted that we were able to do that and do it in the face of some others who were parading around our city. So congratulations to Kiwanis and thank you. Springfield Jazz Orchestra, Todd Stoll, thank you. All the talented people, and most importantly, the people of Springfield who showed up and enjoyed themselves. Thank you.
Also think it's worth thanking the Johnny Lytle family because they were honored. They named the stage. I got to meet Miss Lytle. That was an honor. So just along with what you said.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Tackett.
I too just want to thank everyone for staying engaged in their community, and especially our thanks to our police and fire and sheriff's department who work to keep us safe on Saturday. Thank you.
I just have one brief comment right now. So on August 5th, there was an article posted. The title was, in the New Sun, man arrested in church, business break-ins, police seek help in other crimes. Just outlined that the police had apprehended a suspect that had a string of break-ins. So just going off of what you just said, Chief, even though we may not see what you're doing right now, doesn't mean you're not working. So just thought I would bring that positive comment. And thank you.
Just want to inform the public that our federal legislator continues to be involved with Springfield concerning immigration. Congressman Turner, Sherrod Brown, and also we'll be meeting with the governor again next week just over immigration and its effects here. I am at this point saying there has been a lot of talk from the federal and the state side. Now we need action. And we are looking for funding to help both our safety forces with translation services as well as the hospitals and the school systems are all overwhelmed. So we're looking simply to help with translation services and also to reinforce our safety forces. So when I say infrastructure, those are the 3 to 4 main things that I'm talking about. We continue to be in front of these folks. I believe it's important to continue to tell this message and to control our story as much as possible. My last comment that I make with when I'm with folks or even with an interview that Springfield has a big part and we are trying to do the best we can to get our arms around the situation for all our citizens. Brian, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to address the situation. I know we were at capacity tonight, so I thank those that were able to hang around, and I know some had to stay outside for a period of time. Thank you for your patience in that. I want to thank my staff too. I had several staff members that went outside and met with those individuals that couldn't come in here and either took down information and their comment concern so we can follow up, or they sat out there and had dialogue with them. And so I just want to thank my staff. I want to thank the community for continuing to be engaged. We want to get answers to your questions. to the best of our ability. So just thanks for their patience, and thank you to my staff.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs.